How's it going, guys? It's Cole from See Through Panel showing off my comics and manga haul from May 2023. Before we get started, I'm not going to be spoiling anything, just talking loosely about the plot and what I know of it, which is very little in most cases, and showing off some art at random, so nothing too spoilery is going to be shown in this video. Starting off with PTSD Radio Volumes 2 and 3, I showed off getting Volume 1 on an earlier haul, and I'm really excited to continue the story. Published by Kodansha, retailing for $20, and art and story by Masaki Nakayama. A horror anthology book with a plot thread lingering throughout the different stories. There's one page I cannot show you, but you can see the table of contents is kind of a radio frequency type look, and those are the frequencies that will reappear in certain stories and will kind of have a lingering plot thread for you to follow to kind of continue past stories, start new stories, or intertwine them. And this book just has some really awesome art and really disturbing, horrifying stuff. This is actually pretty light for this book. This book really disturbs me on a level that Junji Ito doesn't really come close to so far. It's really visceral and almost jump scare-ish, which is really hard to do in the comic format, but some stuff, like, it's 2 a.m. here, and I just don't want to look at some of these pages, but I'll flip through some of them. It's really, just, he has a way of making faces just really disturbing and very human while also being kind of uncanny valley. And I just am deeply unsettled by a lot of the stuff this guy does. So I'm not going to be flipping too much more. I'll flip to a random page on Volume 3. See, I don't even know what that is. Is it like a face? I don't know. But they're amazing, and I really love horror manga, obviously, so couldn't resist. Next up, Kaiju number 8, Volume 1 by Naoya Matsumoto, I believe. Published by Viz. Retails for $10 US. Manga's so cheap, man. I love it. This is a book, as far as I can tell, I've already read this, actually. I read it as soon as I got it, because it looked awesome. Shonen manga, so obviously you have a certain group of people you're appealing to, young boys, but it's got all the action you would expect from a shonen, but it also has a really great cartoony art style. That's not a great display of the cartooniness. Actually pretty realistic and detailed. But I really, really enjoyed this. I'll probably be covering it soon on the channel, maybe volumes 1 and 2 together. I already read this, and it's been already almost a week since I read it, because I just couldn't help myself, but I didn't want to review it before I showed it off on the haul, so we'll see if I get to it. But just a really awesome story about a man who wants to join the Kaiju Defense Force, and pretty early on, it's the first chapter, so if you're worried about spoilers, stop here, but pretty early on, he gets infected and becomes a Kaiju himself, is designated as Kaiju number 8. And I really just enjoy this series. Shonen is really heartwarming at those really heroic moments, if you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen any shonen manga or anime, you know. The moment when the main character steps in and he has it all handled and you fully believe he's going to solve the problem. It's just a really fun moment in every shonen. Nothing crazy deep, not a lot of philosophical themes or anything like that, but I don't know why you would expect that from something like this. It's just a lot of fun, a lot of action, and a lot of comedy, honestly. There's some cartoony faces. Main character is also 32 years old, not something you see from a lot of shonen, which is interesting. Up next, Severio Tenuda's Legends of the Pierced Veil, The Scarlet Blaze, published by Humanoids. Retailing for $30 US. This is, like the Mask of Fudo, something I just bought on spec. Saw Tenuda's art, knew I had to have it. I bought this, the Mask of Fudo, and Legends of the Pierced Veil. Izuna? Something like that. I think it's Izuna. Which is him writing, but someone else doing art. And I just really love his... It's almost typical Humanoid style, but he comes and mixes in some like classic Japanese and Asian aesthetic with that style that I think is really transformative and really lends itself to a completely different kind of story than you're used to with Humanoids. Like all Humanoids books, well, not all, but most, you're getting just gorgeous art, a pretty adult story, and some really heavy themes. I've yet to read this at all, but I just know it's going to be pretty dark and pretty involved because his art is just so detailed. There's so much to look at. Love that. Wow. The rays shining down. That's amazing. Yeah, I was really drawn in by his art, and I can't wait to read this and The Mask of Fudo, which is next on my list to read. Need to get through my backlog of Severio Tenuta already, and I've only known about him for like a month. After that, we have Creepy Archives Volume 1 by Dark Horse. This retails for $25 US, and I have a spoiler/size comparison here. That's a regular trade paperback, and this is Creepy Archives. So it is like almost magazine-sized, nice oversized book. What Creepy is, sorry, not Eerie, that's the next one I'll be getting, is classic horror from, I know it's pre-code horror if I can recall. I'm not a very big classic comics guy, I just know that this is the stuff to get when you think of horror comics, at least Western horror comics. And it was all in the magazine. Creepy has some insane lineups of creators. Let me bring this up to the camera. Archie Goodwin, Otto Binder, Russ Jones, Joe Orlando, Frank Frazetta, Alex Toth, Al Williamson, Gray Morrow. I don't know who Gray Morrow is, but everything I've seen from this book looks absolutely incredible. Obviously all black and white. The artists and writers are all listed here and then not usually listed throughout the stories from what I can tell. Oh, here it is. Story by Russ Jones and Bill Pearson, art by Joe Orlando. Okay, when I was reading some of this online, it was a little harder to find the credits, but I'm glad to know they're a lot easier to find in the actual book. It doesn't even fit into frames, it's so large. But just classic Western horror. Some of the stuff's a little goofy, kind of old-fashioned horror that'll make you laugh, but also kind of Junji Ito style. Some of it really is very affecting. Mostly for me, this is an art book, harkening back to a time that I didn't live through, but I really appreciate getting to walk through that time, seeing all this beautiful, beautiful art. See, this feels like Gray Morrow from what I can see. Oh, Reed Crandall, another guy. He and Gray have the very like line-heavy backgrounds that I really like to see. Like right there. Who does that remind me of? I wish I could remember who that reminds me of, but that's fine. The guy who did Frankenstein. It's terrible that I'm forgetting his name. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'll never remember it. That's okay. But yeah, really excited to read this. I've got up to volume 3 coming, and I've got Eerie as well, volumes 1 through 3 coming. I don't know how long I'll continue ordering these. I kind of want to just have enough to enjoy the art of the era and kind of move on. But we'll see. Maybe I'll continue to buy them if I really, really enjoy the contents. After that, let's go with the one I already spoiled. Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man by Taboo, B. Earl, and Juan Ferreira on art. Published by Marvel, obviously. Really thin paperback. 5-issue miniseries, and retails for $18. So that's kind of rough. The size is like, you know, obviously bigger than a manga, but in terms of content, I never enjoy looking at the price tag on a Marvel or a DC trade paperback because they're always so high, but really just bought this for Juan Ferreira's art. I love him as an artist. I adore his art. Ever since I read Colder, I've loved his stuff, and I just don't know about Taboo and B. Earl. B. Earl is a new comic writer that I'm not too aware of, and Taboo is the guy from Black Eyed Peas, I think. I hope I didn't mix those two up. One of them is from the Black Eyed Peas, which I guess might be a selling point for some people. For me, I don't care. I read the first issue of this when it came out, enough to know that I wanted to buy the trade, but also enough to know that the writing isn't really for me. I don't know, it just doesn't sound like Peter Parker to me that much. Hopefully it resonates with some people, but for me, it wasn't bad enough to put me off the book. It's definitely serviceable and works fine for what the story is, but which I don't fully know what the story is, just the first issue, but really just Juan Ferreira's art is what's keeping me here. It's just brutalism, like very, very grim stuff for Marvel, very weird horror stuff. He does love to draw giant creatures. I believe does he do colors? Yeah, he does his own colors and inks and everything. So just letters is all the only thing he's not doing. There's an interesting character design. I really like that design. Yeah, I just really enjoy his stuff. If you haven't seen much of him, Spider-Man Noir had a recent miniseries with him on art. Colder, obviously. Punisher Kill Crew or something like that. I didn't actually read that one. I need to get it just for his art, but yeah, he just does some really out there stuff. Almost like a mixture of Sienkiewicz and then someone a little more standard. I'm not sure how to compare that, but it's definitely got some of that Sienkiewicz looseness in it, but is much more controlled, obviously, than him. Maybe I'm just saying that because of the giant bear that's been on the page. Really fun layouts, too. Yeah, really excited for that one. Nice, easy read sometime when I'm not feeling like anything too deep. After that, I think we've got one of the last collected Topi books. This is Volume 9, The Old World, obviously by Sergio Topi, published by Magnetic Press, retailing for $25 US. I'm going to be hesitant flipping through this because he does include nudity sometimes, but obviously I just buy anything with his name on it, and it is just... His art is so lush and intricate and so geometric, and there's always such layers to go through to look into. There's really nothing like it. I really wish I had more artists in mind with this kind of style, but it looks like it would just take a year to make any of these pages. Like, everything's so richly detailed. And his stories are so timeless. I feel like they're all of a time and a place that I know nothing about, but they're so understandable and you can get right into them. They're usually short and sweet with an ending that just makes you think. It's very provocative, and it's... Yeah, I really, really love Sergio Topi. Only a couple books left. We've got Frankenstein New World. I was really happy they finally put something out because Frankenstein is a character in the BPRD world that I really enjoy, but there was a whole fiasco at Dark Horse with a certain person being fired and a series getting canceled. Finally, they got a new series back out, which basically replaced the old one, and that's Frankenstein New World, published by Dark Horse. Volume 1 here, which is interesting, but retailing for $25 US. I'll need to flip the credits open for this one because there's a lot of names. Obviously, Mignola is going to be on here. Story by Mike Mignola, Christopher Golden, and Thomas Snigoski. I have no idea how to say that. Art by Peter Bergting and Michelle Madsen on colors, Clem Robbins on letters. I really enjoy the BPRD world. I pretty much buy everything that looks fairly of a piece with the world. Sometimes I don't buy all the miniseries that are like, I guess, like the paranormal investigation agency thing. I didn't buy that. It's one of the only books I've skipped on, really, but I just really enjoy their world, and anything that expands upon the parts that I'm really into, I'm definitely down to buy. And Frankenstein I won't say any of that. Frankenstein is a character, and the things that happen to him and where he ends up are super interesting, and I really enjoy that world building that they've put in over the years for that part of the story. Peter Bergting looks like he does fit the Mignola style, but he's a little cleaner than you'd expect. He uses shadows in the way you'd expect from a BPRD book, but they have been getting less loose, a little tighter, more clean, a lot more vivid colors here than you're used to seeing. Obviously, they have moved away from Dave Stewart as a colorist because he probably can't do every book all the time. And that's actually fine. Like, he's an amazing colorist, but they've been doing great work, whoever they put on these books. I think it still stands on its own and still makes sense with the rest of the world, which is great. And I'm really excited to read more of this and get caught up on some BPRD stuff. After that, I believe this is the final book. Yeah, this is the final book. The Department of Truth, The Complete Conspiracy, Volume 1. Big book. Let's see if we can get this here. Compare. Big in that way, but also just dense. Like, it's a big boy. Department of Truth, Complete Conspiracy, Volume 1. Image Comics. James Tynion, written by, obviously. Martin Simmons on art. $50 US. This collects 1 through 17. I'll show off the full credits page, because it's not just Tynion and Simmons. They have quite a few fill-ins. So we got James Tynion on writing, obviously. Martin Simmons on a lot of the art. Aditya Bidikar, I hope I said that right, as the letterer. You get an issue with Tyler Boss. Elsa Chartier, I'm sorry. John Pearson, David Romero, Allison Sampson, Jorge Fornes, It's a work of art. This is a book about conspiracies in our modern day, but also throughout our history as a people and as a nation. And it is just gorgeous. I love Simmons' art. He's definitely a student of Sienkiewicz, but that's totally fine with me. Sometimes it's a little too close to Sienkiewicz, where it looks a little bit overdone to me, but I still just adore the style of this book. And it's a book that lends itself to guest artists that come in and kind of expand upon the world in a way that makes sense, where you can have Tyler Boss come in and do something a little different, and it doesn't feel entirely insane for him to be there. And I'm trying to see if I could find... Here's Elsa doing her art. This is Boss? I don't actually know if this is Boss. I think it is. But as you can see, the art style is a lot different. It uses a lot of the same characters. This is beautiful. A lot of the same characters as the main story, but we just get some one-shots and some lingering threads. And then right back to Martin Simmons. Just a book that really explores a lot of things that I think are interesting and are very prevalent in the world and in media today. And it's really interesting to see them explored in a way that's kind of, I'll say neutral, but I mean, it is coming from a debunking standpoint a lot of the time, but it's in a fun, explorative way where it's not like crapping on everyone who thinks whatever they do think. It's kind of a fair assessment of each series, or of each conspiracy theory. Let's line these guys up here. So a lot of books today. I'm not gonna be able to fit them all onto the page, or onto the screen. But yeah, a lot of books. Really excited to fit these into my library and start reading them. Kaiju number 8. You can expect a review of that very soon. I really enjoyed it. I want to get the rest of the volumes and keep that going on my ongoing manga list with Don to Don. And then Witch Hat Atelier is definitely up next. I really, really want to get that physically and read it. So really appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if you've read any of these or what you think about them. Any more manga that's kind of like this. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Peace.